to That Sports Couple. I'm Lori Lyons, the sports writer, and he's Marty Luquette, the sports coach. And this is our little podcast that we do on occasion. Today we're doing a little something special to honor my dear friend, our dear friend, Bill Bumgarner, who passed away Sunday very unexpectedly. He was a true professional sports writer, an encyclopedia of Louisiana, New Orleans sports history, and a good dear friend of ours. A lot of people may know. He actually put That Sports Couple together. We used to both go to the same little watering hole in Metairie, and every time I'd show up, he'd say, "Oh, Marty with the party's here," and I'd say, "I don't know who that is." And then I'd see this cute guy that I knew who liked to dance with me, and it took me a little while to figure out those were the same person, and that was Marty.
The first time they came in was after a function that the sports writers had, and Lori came in, beautiful as ever, and with 6 or 7 gentlemen. And he said, "Oh, yeah, come meet Lori." I walked over. I said, "Hello." I was going to ask her to dance, and the line was very long that night. So we never did get a chance to talk.
I was safe. That's why everybody could dance with me and be safe.
But he kept pressing until we finally got an opportunity to sit down and talk, and we went out, and the rest is history.
You were not the first, He also hooked me up with quite a few coaches. And a guy from the circulation department. None of them worked out. They weren't the right man for the job.
But we are his claim to fame.
Yeah, he'd love to tell us.
Loves to tell us.
And when I had red hair, he used to call me redhead. He never called me whitehead. Thank goodness. But look, I'm 63 years old, and every time he called me, "Kiddo, hey kiddo, it's Bummer, it's Bill."
And I met Bummer back in the mid-'80s when he was covering New Orleans prep baseball games. And he came to a couple of my games, and I used to look at him, and, I was at Old Perry Walker. We were pretty good. We played American Legion, and we had a pretty good program. But a lot of the schools we played were not very good. They weren't baseball schools. And some of the games were very ugly. And he'd show up, and I'd go, "Why?" Say, "That boss sent me here. I don't know what I'm doing here." And if you know Bummer, you know exactly what he was doing. He was grumbling, but he knew he had to go somewhere that day. Why not?
It was a game.
Yeah, why not Old Perry Walker? So we developed a close relationship back then, and then later when after I got my first divorce. Only divorce.
First divorce. My current husband. It's a TikTok thing.
And he introduced me to Lori, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And look, when I first got to the paper, I worked the night shift for the first 6 months. And then when there's a domino, one person leaves, everybody moves. And I ended up as the sports clerk, which is basically the secretary of the sports department. And so I worked right next to Bill Bumgarner and Ted Lewis every day, and Ron Mercado, as they covered prep. And it was an adventure every single day with Bill and Ted, and it was fun. I used to say I was Miss Linda in Romper Room because all those boys acted so silly. And yeah, I could have probably gotten quite a few of them fired by today's standards. Wait for the book, it's coming.
We didn't have any sexual harassment.
No sexual harassment. No indecent proposals. No, nothing like that. No, nothing like that.
But you are going to hear stories from all those guys.
We called on a few of his friends, our friends, people who knew him and loved him, to share their memories. And look, they all say the same thing. He was a consummate professional sports writer, straight out of Central Casting, and was as gruff on the exterior as he could be. But I said he was like a burnt marshmallow, because on the outside he was crusty, but he was soft as could be on the inside. He was mush. But he hated errors in the paper, misspellings, the wrong things. He kept a big pile of clippings he would cut out of the newspaper of mistakes that he would see, and he'd laugh at them, but it made him really angry. And he took everything he did seriously, whether it was his game stories, his statistics. He taught me how to do statistics on the side. Well, he did the sideline. I was in the press box. I'm too short to cover a game from the side, but he covered from the sidelines, keeping up play-by-play and statistics, taught me how to do it when I first started, put me under his wing and showed me a lot of the ropes that I didn't know, and led me to the Louisiana Sports Writers Association. Said, you need to come to convention. And I said, okay. And he said, you need to come to the Hall of Fame. I said, okay. And then they both ended up in the same place. And I have been going for 30 years. And that's my second family, the LSWA. And look, he held court in the hospitality room, telling his stories. Yes, we heard them all every year, but we loved hearing them. And I told somebody, we'd walk down the hall and you could hear his voice. And that's how you knew the hospitality room was open and you wanted to go. And he would tell stories and we'd play bourrée, and he'd grumble when things didn't go correctly.
As we do these interviews and let people tell their stories, I learned that I'm still learning stuff about Bill I didn't know. I didn't realize that he was the first one to really do blue chip.
He started that
doing recruiting. All the recruiting blue chippers
before social media, before Twitter, before you all had those big lists.
He was. I didn't realize he had done all those things. It was really interesting.
Blue chip list.
The blue chip list has got to be. That's got to be a claim to fame.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is.
And how good he was at it. You wanted to be on his list.
Yes. And if you weren't, shame on you. But he knew who should be on the list and who should. That blue chip list was his baby. And everybody's amazed because he did it before social media, before the internet, and he did it by just calling coaches. Like, coach, who you got? Who looks good? Who has a chance to be recruited? And he'd put his list together. And I would listen because I was sitting next to him.
Who's the best in your area?
Right. Yeah.
Look, many a time he called me up and do the same. He was like, okay, we're picking an all-metro team. Who needs to be on it in the area? Not just your players, but he wanted to know about other people's players.
Exactly.
Because they could be a kid like a Monroe Bates out of Booker T. Washington that nobody knew about, but you knew about him because you had to play him, but nobody had heard about Monroe Bates until then. And then Monroe Bates went on to play at Delgado and Southern or Grambling he went to and had a great career, but if Bill doesn't call, the Monroe Bates doesn't get the recognition and gets found by Grambling, so.
And I believe there was a story that he told somebody that, Peyton's a good player, but I hear his little brother Eli's not too bad either. And I think there was a story about that somewhere.
And we were all starving for any kind of press we could get because there's such competition in the prep rating, in the prep field, because there's so many schools and there's so many stories to tell. And for anytime you got someone that came and wanted to tell or cover your game or write a feature, you were bent over backwards to help them out. And Bill was one of those guys who spread it out around. He could have hung out at the Catholic League and just did the Catholic League, and he covered the Catholic League well, but he also found time to do the special stories that needed to be.
If you mentioned the school, he had a story. He went to West St. John. He saw Terry Rubisky. He has been to a St. James game. He had been to East St. John, Destre, and Hornville. He knew all of our schools, knew all the coaches, had spoken to them, and probably had a good idea who all the best players were. Or, he would call me and ask me, and, we'd discuss. But he had his finger on the pulse of everything. And it was very important to him that New Orleans and the outlying areas like ours got the coverage that they deserved.
And I didn't get to Louisiana till 77 as a player at UNO. So I didn't know the backgrounds. I didn't know the histories, And then this guy comes and wants to interview me and talk to me about my team, And you when you hear him and the way he talks and how gruff he is, the only thing missing was the little press thing on his hat.
I'm sure he had one.
Because he is exactly what you think the old press guys are like.
Exactly.
The old sports writers. He just needed that. But and there were a lot of prep guys around that did great jobs. Mike Strom on the West Bank back then. Klein Peter and all those guys. There were plenty of guys doing fantastic work, and obviously they all had an influence on Lori.
Oh, absolutely. And when they said, we're thinking about putting Lori on the prep beat, he didn't say, "Oh, Jesus, no, you can't do that."
To you.
No, some did, but it wasn't him. He took me under his wing. He took me to a game at East Jefferson. I remember it. Took me to a game, showed me how to do play-by-plays, how to add up the stats because I'm terrible in math, and he gave me a system that was easy for me to do. That I kept meticulous statistics because of his system and easy math. And look, he was the master of the lead, and in journalism, that's the first sentence, the first paragraph. He was the master at it. He was the best at it, and I always tried to emulate him. So a lot of people have told me that I wrote great leads over my career, and it's because of him, because I followed his footsteps, his style. I just thought he was great at it. If you were there, you'll never forget it. Like just the first opening sentence that made you keep going. That's how you write a great lead, and he did it, and he was a master at it.
Well, we're going to step away right now and let everyone else tell the stories, and then we're going to listen to them up. So this is a tribute to you, Bill.
We love you, Bill. Joining us now is my dear sweet friend from the Louisiana Sports Writers Association, the Corn King, Mr. Garland Foreman, who is the publisher of half the newspapers in Louisiana right now. How's that?
That'll work.
There you go.
We're from South Central Louisiana.
He lives in Bunkie.
Yeah, I live close to Bunkie.
Close to Bunkie. Over there by Bunkie.
Yeah, somewhere.
He's the Bunkie man.
Amongst the cornfields.
Yeah. And he's also a master Blu-ray player. And we used to have some very fun, long nights in the Louisiana Sports Writers Association hospitality room playing Blu-ray and listening to stories about Bill Bumgarner. We have all suffered a tremendous loss this week, Garland. Talk about it.
Well, I told somebody when I heard about this that, when I first joined the LSWA, which was back in the late 80s, probably the first person that welcomed me was Bill. My problem with Bummer is, of course, he wanted to know where I was from. And when I said Bunkie, and I think I had a Corn Festival shirt on at that, it started, and it has never stopped, and I'm going to miss him picking at me about Bunkie and the Louisiana Corn Festival. But he made me feel welcome. He made me feel welcome in the association. He took me around and introduced me to people, and it just I just loved him like a brother. I did, because him and I laughed and joked and carried on. And if you went to the hospitality room when we was there, like you said, we played Blu-ray, and both of us was kind of loud, laughing and joking almost all night. So it was fun. That's
how we knew it was fun in there. It was like you'd walk down the hall, we'd hear you and Bill, and we're like, oh, okay, it's lit. Let's go.
Well, we had some good times, and one of the stories that I always tell people was we were in Monroe for a convention, and Philip Timothy, my dear friend Philip, called me into his room, and he said, you need to play a prank on Bummer. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he says, well, let's go. Won't you run down to the store and buy some corn and give it to him as a joke? I said, that's a good idea. So I took off. I went to and found a grocery store in Monroe, And I walked in, and just so happened, the guy was putting out fresh ears of corn to sell. He even had the old wooden crate that he was taking out of there. And I said, how many ears of corn in that crate? He told me, I don't know, 50 or 60. And I said, so how much is it? And he figured it up, and he told me it wasn't much. And then I said, how much for that crate? I really want that crate. He says, man, I'll give that to you. So I put them all in the crate, got up and went back to the hotel. And that year I had put hang on one second.
Yeah,
okay.
I got it.
Okay. I had got several door prizes from Paragon Casino, and they were good prizes, hotel stays, golf thing. And I believe Sheldon Mickles was the president. And we wrapped up that thing in a wrapping paper. And at the end of the convention, the last thing we did, Sheldon gets up and says, look, Garland has done very well this year with door prizes for us. He said, but this last one takes the cake. It is good. And we had rigged it where made sure Bummer was going to win it. Okay. And Bummer was sitting in the back, and they read that number out, and he jumped up. Oh, that's mine. That's mine. And he run up front, and Sheldon told him, he says, now, Bummer, you got to open it and show everybody right here in the front. And I wish you'd have seen his face when he opened it up and saw a crate of corn sitting there. But I'm a truly miss him. He a true professional journalist.
Right. Yes.
Okay. He took his work serious. When he had free time, he would joke and carry on. But when he was doing his job, he was doing his job just like any of us was doing. Just like Lori would do, and just like I would do. And he knew his sports inside and out.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes, he did.
Yep.
What lessons from Bill Bumgarner will you take with you?
Well, one is, like I just said, the professionalism. I mean, he not that he ever told me, but him and I were probably one of the few sports writers that sat on the sidelines of a football game.
I can't do it. I'm too short.
And neither did he. Okay.
Never could do it.
Nope. And I did all my stats on the field and all of that. And one day somebody told me that Bill did the same thing. I said, well, we think alike then. but I think Bill was probably a better sports writer than I was. Bill knew everybody. And I thought I knew a lot of people.
He did.
I didn't hold a candle to who Bill knew. So,
exactly. Yeah, he knew who everybody was.
Yep. And when he had to work, he had to work. And I would stop into the whatever the bureau was that he worked at there next East Jeff Bureau, and he would have stuff piled up on the desk, but he don't mess with it because he knew where it was at.
It was organized chaos.
Yeah, you didn't do anything because he would be upset if you did.
Absolutely.
But, just a great human being, and I can't say enough about them. And I'll give something that happened a year ago. My son's house burnt down, and we were trying to get my son, and he didn't have much money. But anyway, we were trying to get him up. All of a sudden, I get an envelope in the mail, and it's from Bill. It's $250, and it just touched me so much to see that he cared about that. And him and I would talk about twice a month. I mean, it's religiously, And his first thing he would tell me, any good concerts at the Paragon? No, not for you, Bill. You don't want the hip hop.
No. He would still go listen to the Turtles and stuff.
But it meant so much to my family that he did something like that.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, Garland. We love you. And I know we're having a rough week dealing with it, but God, we've got stories to tell forever.
It'll be there, and especially if you like the Yankees and the Celtics. He was that was over the moon. Nobody else did good, but the Yankees and the Celtics always did good with him.
But the one thing we're going to miss is his story.
Yeah.
Yep, his story. That's exactly right. Because he
Exactly.
could walk in a room and in 2 minutes have everybody on the floor laughing with his
You just
story.
mentioned somebody. Oh,
Yeah.
I got a story about him.
Yeah, and I can't. I'm not like that, and I can't remember things that he said and did. I mean, it's just amazing what he would say and do.
I know.
And then when he would start telling the story, you would say, "Oh yeah, I remember that,"
Yeah.
but it was still funny to hear it again. So always. So,
Absolutely.
all right.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Garland. We love
Take
you.
care.
All
Take care.
right.
We'll see y'all soon.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
With us now is Coach Jay Roth, the athletic director at Archbishop Rummel High School, and somebody who has known Bill Bumgarner probably longer than I have. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
You're welcome, Lori, Marty.
So how long did you know Bill Bumgarner, and when did you first meet him?
Well, I got to know Bill when I was a player at Rummel, so 1988, 79, 80, when he was covering Rummel football. And when I came back in the city as a coach, he used to cover all the prep games up until his retirement.
Did y'all, as a player, did y'all know who he was? And when you saw him, say, oh, there's Bill Bumgarner from the State's item or the Picayune, y'all knew who he was, yeah.
At the time, you had the State's item and the Times Picayune, so your game got twice the coverage, and you knew who the man was, covering the game. And if you had a good game, he'd be the one to talk to you.
Yeah, I used to tell my kids, people that too. Like, if I talk to you after the game, that means you did good.
Right. I got to know.
So, and then when he was, covering your school while you were a coach, what was that like for you?
Well, being that I knew him, plus he was a good writer. You
Yeah.
could talk to him, and no matter what you said, he would clean it up. He never made you look bad, and he was a professional. He was a different kind of writer. His stories were personal. It just wasn't stats and numbers. He always had a little personal touch to all the stories, and it's kind of sad to see. As I walk around Rummel, we have framed articles in the baseball locker room, football locker room, and it's Bill Bumgarner covering baseball, covering football, covering games in the 80s. And it's just, he was a tremendous writer. It's a tremendous loss for the city and prep sports.
And talk about, he was a trailblazer in the world of recruiting. Talk about that. He helped a lot of kids get to college, didn't he?
He did, with his blue chip list. And it was funny because whenever the new coaches were hired, he'd always come and say, Jay, you got Lance Thompson's number? Lance was the recruiting coordinator at LSU. Can you give me Lance? Can you put me in touch with Lance? Jay, how about Coach Baggs? You got Coach Baggs' number? Can you tell Coach Baggs to call me? And so sometimes we were a go-between, when he was a new guy, those coaches needed to know that they could trust him.
Right.
And
trust. That's a big thing. Trust. You could trust him.
And look, he had his, he got his time with Nick Saban. He got his time with Donardo. People got to know Bill, and they gave him his time because he put together the blue chip list, and he had information they needed.
Right.
Well, it's always, we've enjoyed doing this because it's a chance to talk about Bill and his personality and how he was and how he reacted to prep sports. But, it has to be a personal level for you.
It was. And just like as I got older, I got to know the coaches I played against and coached against. I got to know them personally. And I got to know Bill personally in the last 10, 15 years. We'd go out to lunch 2 or 3 times a year, Bricata, Strom, coaches, Coach Hank, Coach Pontiff. And I loved hearing Bill Bumgarner's stories. Tell me what it was like to interview Bobby Collin. What was it like, getting to know John Callbacker or, Otis Washington. I love hearing stories like that. What was it like covering the Eric West Jeff game with Gary James and those guys, So I would just sit there and, my mouth would just hang, listen to these stories he would tell.
And all you had to do was name a coach, and he had a story. Name a game, he had a story. Name a stadium, he had a story for it.
And one of the neat stories I heard, and you being a writer, Lori, that's how close you writers were and how much fun y'all had and how y'all picked on each other. And
yeah.
I would just like coaches in a sense. He said, Jay, we'd go to writers' conventions and things, and we'd have fun. We were each other playing jokes on each other. So that was always good to hear too.
Yeah, you should have heard us at all state meetings.
But it's we since we're talking to everybody, they're all telling stories. But how much trouble he had going from the old typewriters into the the new age, and it's just been fun to hear the stories.
I kind of felt this pain in 2013. We had to go down to Howard Avenue to shoot some photos for All Metro team, and I walked into the bureau and it was empty, and it was sad. It was just very sad that nobody was in there. Everybody had moved to the East Bank Bureau, I believe, and to hear him tell the stories of what it was like to work in the bureau in the old days, where every desk was filled and typewriters were clanging and people were trying to hit deadlines. So I guess if you spent a lot of time, most of your career, doing it that way, I can see how he had a hard time accepting how it ended.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Most definitely. There used to be a literal smoky haze across the newsroom in the old days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and by the end of his career, a lot of people were working at home.
Yeah.
They weren't making him come into the office, and for him that was a sin because he liked to go early and
Like to go to the office.
and he liked to get there and settle in and talk and it was Bill.
I feel what he felt, because as a coach, I used to love trading film. I used to love going scout. I like coming on Sundays and work, and now it's done different. And if you can't change, it's hard to accept. And I can understand. I have a hard time accepting, and I think Bill did to the very end also.
Right.
Well, he really liked you, Coach, and he spoke very highly of you and all that you stood for. So
we like you too.
Well, Marty and Laurie, thank y'all for including me in this. And I know my father called me. My father's 86 years old. He says, Jay, I'd like to come in Saturday for the services, because Bill was good to my father too. So I have my dad there with us. Well, thank you for including me in this, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for putting up with our technology issues.
Got it solved. Hey,
modern technology.
Well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Now is Richard Meek, longtime co-worker and dear friend of our friend Bill Bumgarner. Thanks for joining us, Richard.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be here. It's a sad day. I wish it was under better circumstances, but it's a sad day. But we all have our great memories of Bomber.
So how long did you know Bill?
We're going to give away our ages here, but this month, actually September, 1976, was when he first, interviewed me for the State's Item, and said, "Look, I want you to cover this game." It was Shaw. He says, "I need to let me know if the quarterback's any good. I've heard some good things about him." And so first place from scrimmage, the quarterback went 40 yards on a quarterback sneak. It's like, this guy's pretty good. And it was John Forcade, believe it or not.
Well, there you go.
But the one thing I really remember, and I'm so grateful to him, is he gave me a start. And a couple of weeks later, I met up with Larry Heimel, who we all know, of course. And I guess the best thing I can say, my career path in my life was not on a direction that would be considered positive at that point. A local university asked me to take my academic endeavors elsewhere after that spring semester. A university you know well, Lori Lyons.
Okay.
And so, and I say that because really he gave me that start, and it turned my life around. 49 years later, we're all still doing this crazy stuff, right?
Right, I know.
And because of him, he gave me a direction. He turned my life around that to this day. I mean, I don't think he ever realized what he meant to me. So that's really my recollection of him. Through the years, we've all had our good times, our laughs. Sometimes our frustrations a little bit, because he was the Bomber. But I think overall, you can't say a bad word about him. And I loved him. I loved him like a brother. I was fortunate. I feel very, very blessed to be with him, to have been with him in his, at his bedside when he left us. I'll never forget that. And it's not a sad memory. It's a good memory. And so, that's just a great guy, overall guy.
Yeah. And he was a good friend to us, introduced us, brought us together. And
Yes.
and he was definitely a unique individual. Everybody wants to do the Bummer voice. The kiddo. Every time he called me, kiddo.
Or, I still walk around saying, my goodness, because it's, one of his favorite phrases. But, the stories you could tell about Bomber from, those early days, from the early days of when the States had him. We went from the IBM Selectrics. Like I said, I'm dating myself here. Man. But the IBM Selectrics to, VDTs. And it's just amazing. And the progress and the technology and the technical advances. And to be with Bummer during that time and
It
to
was the old
witness him.
ages.
Man, if you remember correctly, we had the porta bubbles.
Yeah, we all used to joke that we would find some in his house when he was gone, and
Oh,
I'm sure there
without a
are.
doubt. Yeah, it has to be because he had every last one.
Uh,
So when a piece, something broke, he could
he would
have
have
somebody
he had a spare. Yeah.
repair it. I'll never forget at his Christmas party. This is probably 20 years ago, maybe. And he said something along the lines of, can't we just go back to typewriters? I was like, I think that ship has sailed. But that was Bummer. That was who
Yes.
he was. And he made no apologies for it, nor should he have.
Right. He would have. I don't know if I ever even got to tell him because we didn't talk that often in recent years, but I actually wrote a story this year on my phone.
Really?
Using Google Doc. In fact,
Oh,
it was the
wow.
Baton Rouge Rougarou Championship game.
Yeah.
I had technical difficulties. My laptop wouldn't work. There was no Wi-Fi. So we got in the car. Marty drove. I wrote the story on my Google Doc,
That is
and
amazing.
then emailed it to myself. And then when I got home, I was able to just move it into the website and send it. It was amazing. Yeah,
Yes,
modern technology.
it really is. I mean, it's not a bad thing.
No,
But
but
on
to him it was.
yeah, well, oh my God! And on a lighter note, with the Rougarou, I just want to point out that Rougarou had not won a title, correct? And then
Right.
what early in the year, first game, so one of his first games, I wrote a story about him, and then he won a championship.
Well,
That's
there you go.
all.
You're the good luck charm.
That's yeah, but back to Bomber. It's everyone's going to be sad, but I hope Saturday is really a celebration,
Yeah.
and I really believe, um, and I think a lot of us believe he's in a better place, and I think he's looking out for us. He's going to look down and say, "My goodness, what are all these people doing?" You
Gee.
know, I know, I know, and I'm sure Pete Finney was there waiting for him.
Oh,
Like,
the press box in the sky. I like to think of it. No, Marty Muley and Bobby Dower
oh,
and Bob
uh-huh.
Wrestler and Pete Finney and there's so many. Larry McMillan. There's
Oh,
so
yeah.
many of them.
Well,
I hope
yeah.
they're all toasting to us.
Well, yeah, me too. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of toast up there, and man, but yeah, I'm sure Marty was one of the first to say welcome home,
Well,
and I'm sure Peter was after him.
I'm sure they were waiting for him, but they were also probably saying it's going to get a lot louder up here.
Yes, it will. Yes, I think the whole decibel level just changed.
Robert was
Yes,
like the kid in class who would like make little comments in the back of the room. That was Bummer. Bummer I always had something to say, And
right.
the kid, you
Yeah.
had to say, "Stop talking, stop talking."
But one thing about him is, I learned a lot from him in ways how to treat people, how to talk to people.
Mhm.
And all the coaches, you know this because you've been involved in it for so long, and of course, Marty, you know it. All the coaches loved him. I
Oh,
mean, they
absolutely.
had a lot of respect for him. Not to say everyone ever always agreed with him, but I think most of the coaches, anyway, I know, just thought the world of him. The day after it happened, I was with Frank Selfo and told him at his weekly presser, and I said, Coach, Bill Bumgarner, I want to let you know he passed away last night, and he was like, he says, man, he was really a good guy, and I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of people had that same reaction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Richard, thank you so much for sharing your memories with us of our friend Bill Bumgarner. I
Uh,
know we're all hurting.
And Laura, you did a phenomenal job.
Oh, thank you so much.
So we're talking about bringing TOTI. You did phenomenal, and Marty, I still like to say, I think I remember the day she walked into the sports department. That was a couple of years ago, Laura.
Just a few.
A few.
And they went,
Yeah.
oh, Lord, what do we have here? What are we going to do with this one?
Yep. There you
Yep.
go. That
You
sounds
see,
just
they
like it.
hired. Yeah, I was the girl in sports for a long time.
Yeah.
No,
But you were, Marty, she was always an asset, always positive to be around. So that's a good thing.
the funny, a bummer thing was, when she went to the river, he probably bitched that she was getting a job, but then he helped her,
Yeah, exactly.
which is exactly that, just like Bill.
Yeah.
Sure. You're right.
All right,
Okay,
Richard,
well, thank you so much for this opportunity.
I appreciate you.
We'll see you Sunday. Appreciate y'all. Take
All right.
care. All right.
Now we have with us Ted Lewis, my former coworker and longtime coworker of our friend Bill Bumgarner. It's been a rough 2 weeks for us in our sports world. Bummer was your friend and coworker for how long?
Friend from 1974. First time to go to a football all-state meeting in Baton Rouge. I didn't know anybody much. They sent me down there, and there was this guy, a skinny guy, and represent New Orleans along with John Jolly, and people like too many of them we lost, like him, Ted Castillo, Roger Brandt, but I also met our friends Glenn Quibido, Bobby Dyer that weekend. It was I'll always refer back to that as a time that I met so many people that meant to me, just so many friends for life. And then we worked together. It's funny when in summer of 1983, I was the sports editor in Monroe until they told me my services were no longer needed. And we had the Hall of Fame, actually the LSWA convention a few weeks later in Lafayette. And I remember Bummer coming over to me and patting me on the back and says, "We're not going to let you get away from here." And
there you go.
A few months, it was said at the time, the way it was said, it meant a lot to me. And a few months later, lo and behold, I'm hired in New Orleans, and they put me, and a few months after that, they tell me I'm the prep editor, and and Bummer's working for me. So when he said he didn't want to, not working for me, but I'm his supervisor, and so when he said we're not going to let you get away, I'm not sure he planned it that way. We knew each other over 50 years, and just he and I and Roe were supposed to go together to the Hall of Fame meeting a few weeks ago, and that's the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
Well, he never wanted to. He never would want to be the boss.
No. Supervisor. I think he might have been prep editor for a little while. I'm not sure. Seemed like in there, but he certainly didn't. He never. Now he might have opinions on everything, and like all of us, think he could do things better. But to be in charge, no. I was planning things, stuff like that. We talked some, but not as much. But hey, that was Bummer. He was certainly a one of a kind person.
And you spent so many years, I know I spent so many years, sitting next to him in the office with his booming voice, talking to coaches. Coach, Bill Bumgarner, tell me about your players. He definitely had his finger on the pulse of prep sports and recruiting before it was a thing.
Exactly. He loved to talk about recruiting, and he worked those phones with those people. And I remember when recruiting started to turn a little bit, and the internet came along, and so players were committing online and things like that. He couldn't take that. He said, "Why can't they wait till the next day and do it so we get it in the paper first?" And but I'm sure he adapted over the year. Well, no, he never adapted. There's a piece of equipment called the porta bubble,
Yes.
that we used back in the day, an early computer to send stories on. He
And it
loved
was easy.
Porta bubbles were good and easy to use, and I'm sure he would have used it forever if they would have let him. And he was not the master of his cell phone,
No.
but all of those things. But listen, he just, you know, that was him, and it was part of why you loved him about so much about things.
Absolutely. And he was instrumental in our organization, the Louisiana Sports Writers Association. I mean, he really cared about that organization and what happened to it.
You know, you and I were talking. I would venture to guess that last selection meeting we had a few weeks ago, that might have been the first time he ever missed an all-state meeting or a selection meeting, or going to the Sugar Bowl Hall of Fame meetings.
Right.
If he did, I can count on one hand the ones. I never knew him not to be there, and not to be there for the Hall of Fame. He and I would ride up together the last few years for the Hall of Fame, and he'd want to, be in Bummer. Let's get out of here. Let's go home.
Gonna be quiet.
Let's get up at 6 a.m. and go home. No, give me a little time.
He
He was there. He was just ready to leave. It's not it's really sad, but I'll tell it anyway. When our friend Bobby Dower, we knew that he didn't have long, and Marty Muley, another dear friend we lost. Marty and I met Bummer and Ron Mikado in Baton Rouge at the Being Advocate building, which was over by the Mall of Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to meet. We met there and then drove to Lake Charles to see Bobby the last time we saw him. So we meet and we start out. And if anybody's been in Baton Rouge, what's the street? Essen. Street there behind the paper. Always congested, like all Baton Rouge traffic. We've been in the car for like 5 minutes, moving slow. We're never going to get there. It was like we just started. And I always recall that. It's like, geez, man, we just got in the car. Look, let's get us out of Baton Rouge and we'll be fine. But he was a little impatient about things.
A little impatient, a little ornery, and he could find something to complain about. Absolutely.
Well, yes,
that's the Pisces in him, I think.
Yes, he could. Just
I never saw that. I don't know what you all are talking about.
Yeah,
Jen, I never saw that side of him. I don't know what you all are talking about.
But Lord, he loved the people he worked with. He loved you. Introduced you to that good fellow there next to you.
Right.
That was, he took credit for that.
Well, he tried a couple of times too. Now, Marty was not the first.
Well, he did those things for you, and we were sitting. I was trying to recall today in the office. Did you sit between the two of us?
No, y'all sat like to my left, and like side by side, and I was like a little a ways from you.
Well, there were three of us in there, and we were in there. And like you pointed out, or someone else did, he never got over the old being with the state's item and getting in at 6 a.m.
Oh yeah,
I
he
would
would show up
usually
at 7 a.m.
I would usually get in about 9:30. He'd already been there, and he was ready to eat lunch at 11.
Yeah.
Well, you know why he left?
It's 11 o'clock. And
you know why he was there at 6 o'clock, huh? He wanted to beat the traffic.
Yeah, probably so.
Maybe traffic from better.
Be there. As a matter of fact, and I forgot, we talk about keeping people there and hiring. The day that I came down to interview with the Picayune, though, the night before was a Sunday. I spent the where I spent the night at his house. They didn't put me in a hotel or anything. Yeah. Spent the night with him that night before. He was very supportive and everything. He wanted to get me to New Orleans. And that's, those are the things that maybe you don't think about over the years anymore. But but he did that. So
I got you.
I'm sure he put in a good word for me that day.
Well, Ted, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing your memories. We've lost a good friend, both of us. All three of us.
Hey, we do, but we do have those memories, and you cherish them, and you appreciate as time goes on your friends more and more, and he wasn't just a coworker; he was a friend. And,
exactly.
And I'll close with this. I'm sure you're the same way. In the last couple of weeks, I was thinking about, man, I wanted to call him up about something. We love to talk about how bad the paper was now, or the selections on who we're going to vote for in the Hall of Fame, or things like that. You can't reach and call him anymore. And I meant to call him the weekend before he died. I kept thinking, I need to call Bummer and just see how he's doing, because we knew he was having a few little problems. And I just it slipped my mind or something like that. And another friend we worked with, Billy Turner, once told me, and this was work related, but you can put it in with friends, never hesitate to make that extra phone call. You never know how it's going to.
That's true.
You never know what's going to turn out. And so if you've got somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, don't sit there and say, well, I'm going to watch this show or do this, or I'll do it tomorrow.
Right.
Do it when you think of it. And, and I don't think you'll ever regret it.
Right. Well, hope you know I love you.
Yes, ma'am. I love you too. We'll see you Saturday.
All right. Thank you. Now is our friend Lenny Van Gilder, who worked with and was friends with Bill Bumgarner for many, many years, longer than me. Lenny, thanks for joining that sports couple. Tell us your thoughts on the beloved curmudgeon Bill Bumgarner.
Sunday night was a long night with a lot of phone calls and a lot of storytelling. I mean, we could, this could become a 24/7 podcast if you wanted to try to get in all of the stories over the years. Obviously, a lot of us have worked with Bill, worked alongside Bill, sat on committees with Bill, all of those kind of things. The one thing that is my point of difference with Bill is, for 3 weeks after Hurricane Katrina, we were evacuated with Bill at Dan and Mary Beth McDonald's house in Lafayette. And that was a unique experience. If you've been around Bill, you will know that patience, and waiting to get information was not necessarily his strong suit. He wanted to know it, and he wanted to know it now. So, and that was hard. Look, the people who are watching this, who are in the New Orleans area, who were there 20 years ago, remember what it was like after Katrina. That it was hard to get information. In a lot of cases, the information you got was wrong, and that was tough. Bill learned a lot, I think, in that time, whether it was, dealing with technology. Mary Beth was giving him lessons on how to use his new Picayune phone and things like that. But living under the same roof with him for 3 weeks, evacuated after Hurricane Katrina, was certainly an interesting experience.
Well, Bill was definitely a Pisces. I'm a Pisces, and patience and stress are not our strong suits. We want it fixed, and we want it fixed now. Right. And I know.
My best friend, Bill Calhoun, actually fixed Bill's house.
Mm-hmm.
And our friendship even held up through that.
Wow. There you go. Well, look, you talk about points of difference. I mean, I'm not sure how many couples Bill put together. So it's, y'all are in the, y'all fall in that group. There may be some others out there. I don't know. Maybe they'll chime in at some point in this. But obviously, everybody's got their unique experiences there. And I mean, that was, look, we did a lot. I remember about going, because again, everybody left for 3 days. We made shopping trips. We made like a $200 run to the grocery. Dan will tell you the story about how he got us, one day he was trying to build a garden in his backyard in Youngsville. And, it was basically, Bill and I doing a lot of it along with Dan and Mary Beth. Christy was, 30 plus weeks pregnant at that point with our oldest son. So it was, so she got to watch and maybe, bring us a bottle of water or something like that, just to keep us going, or, maybe a long neck for Bill. I'm not sure. So it's,
tell the truth. Was that just a task that Dan came up with to keep Bill busy?
It's not out of the question. I mean, that's one for Dan, and the statute of limitations is long gone from 20 years. But yeah.
You've talked since Sunday. You've talked to a lot of people, I'm sure, about the legacy that Bill left. Tell me what you've heard. What people are saying.
It's obviously, it's all good. I mean, we talk about, we're talking about our unique stories. And I think the thing, and I wrote it in my story, Crescent City Sports Monday morning, the thing, a lot of people have covered high school sports, and a lot of people have covered different things, and a lot of people have won awards. But the thing that Bill did before anybody else was his coverage of recruiting, and he was meticulous with that. I mean, I witnessed it from a little bit different perspective, being in college sports information, and that he would, a lot of times we were comparing notes before signing day off the record, because I couldn't talk about that as an employee of a school. I couldn't talk about, players who we expected to sign and things like that. It's a little different in 2025, but he was trying to, write all his capsules and say, hey, anything you got on your guys, please let me know. Here's where I can help you. Here's the guys you're getting from New Orleans. I can give you this information. Remember, when he was doing a lot of this, like I said, there was no social media. There was no internet. There was no rankings of all of these guys. I mean, his, those blue chip lists that he put together in advance, were really the gold standard of recruiting in Louisiana. If you were a top prospect in the state, you wanted to be on Bill's blue chip list.
Absolutely.
One of the interesting stories that I did hear about recruiting is the one he didn't get in terms of, any kind of scoop, he found out the same time we all did, was Peyton Manning. Peyton, I remember he had a press conference on signing day down at the Hilton to announce he was going to Tennessee. And nobody knew what he was doing. He was very good at keeping it close to the vest through the whole recruiting process. And when he said it at the podium that day is when everyone found out about it.
Wow.
And, but again, when you were at it for 34 years, like Bill was on the recruiting beat, and, the large majority of the time you were the one that broke the story, to find out in a press conference was a little bit different.
Right. Exactly. So what lesson did Bill teach you? He taught me how to write a lead. What did he tell you? What did he teach you?
I think with Bill, it was a lot of things, about life. I mean, he always, whenever we talked, he always wanted to know, how the family was doing.
Absolutely.
And obviously it was all, and that, look, it was a lot of that was the time that we did spend together, but always wanting to know about that. And again, I think just his thoroughness and his attention to detail and everything. It could be whether it was a recruiting list or it was his Christmas party. Okay. You were going to get that call, in the fall at some time. Hey, this is the date of the party, and if something came along that either made him, I remember the year the Saints won the Super Bowl, he would have normally done it the Saturday night before Christmas. Well, the Saints played a Saturday night game that year against the Cowboys, so he had to have the party on Friday night. I'm sure that was like, through, anything, that would kind of throw a monkey wrench into things could,
Well, he got mad that we
could
got
be upset.
married that week too because we never
Exactly.
the party because
Yep.
we on a trip every year. So
Exactly. So, and anything that would interfere with,
party.
with that, and I think there, the stories out there, and I think, Leslie's touched on this in his story that he wrote for us was, I think he went back and took copious notes at the end of the night. Oh, this one came and this one didn't come, and this one came and this one didn't come. And it was like the naughty and nice list with Santa Claus. You had to, you got the invite. You needed to be, or you needed an excused absence, I guess.
We had one.
We went.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes, you did.
Up the night of our
The
wedding.
night of our wedding, before we went to the hotel, we stopped by the Christmas party.
Come see the wedding dress. Because you needed to show up.
We did, and he fixed us up. We owed him an appearance.
Exactly. You had to do that. So, I mean, one of those parties that sticks out to me was the snow of 1989. The party was the next night. Now the streets were drivable and that kind of thing, but I remember it was probably still less than 20 degrees outside going to the party back in 1989. I'm aging myself here, but I do remember going to the party that night. You talk about I remember one year I was, during my Tulane days, I landed from a basketball road trip at midnight and went straight to the party.
Yep, he was legendary for his Christmas party.
No doubt.
Well, thank you, Lenny, for joining us. I appreciate your memories of our beloved Bill Bumgarner, and he is going to be missed. He's
No doubt he is, and we will. We're gonna all encounter things, and I think we all experience this with with people we've known and loved. Is that you're going to experience things over, the next year, 5 years, 10 years. Something's going to happen, and it's going to be like, man, what would Bummer think of this? How would he have dealt with this? It's going to happen, but that just means that we've got fond memories to go back to, and a man who who did things right in our industry and taught a lot of us a lot of great lessons to live by.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lenny. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
All right. With us now, we have Doug Ireland, our friend from Natchitoches and the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, the executive director. Is that correct? Is that what your title is?
Chairman of the Hall of Fame, executive director of the foundation.
Who is also a very good, longtime friend of our friend Bill Bumgarner. Doug, this was a huge loss for all of us. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, nobody more so than you and other people who worked with him at the Times-Picayune and States Item, and people who he covered, particularly in the New Orleans area. But you got to understand, I'm in Natchitoches. Bill Bumgarner was a giant in this part of the state. Bill Bumgarner made tremendous impact in the coverage of sports, particularly high school sports. And not only with his coverage, but his influence of other people who covered high school sports. And that will continue for decades. I mean, he is essential to high school sports coverage in Louisiana, as I would say anybody could be essential to coverage of high school sports in any state. He has been a dynamic, transformational figure and a great, not a good, but a great mentor. And he was so widely respected, not only by sports media, but by the coaches he worked with to get the recruiting information. And I'll give you a great example. He had a great affinity for a guy named Scott Stoker, who was our head football coach at Northwestern, was an assistant coach at McNeese, is now a linebackers coach at UL Lafayette. They would talk recruiting.
Yep.
And Bill considered anything Stoker said to be absolutely the biblical truth. And Stoker believed anything Bill said was absolutely the biblical truth. And that's just one person
Right.
that he dealt with of hundreds to be sure that his recruiting information was the best there was
Right.
in Louisiana. And then you get down to the event coverage and the feature stories and the mentoring of people like you who became giants in our profession. You can't quantify this. And we knew, nobody lives forever.
And he was a huge champion of the Hall of Fame itself.
Yes.
Involved and cared about it being in existence. And look, he's the one who said, kiddo, you need to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. He was one of the 3 remaining original members of the Hall of Fame selection committee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that reflected his passion for Louisiana sports and Louisiana sports history and the Hall of Fame, which is the baby, if you will, the grown-up adult child of the Louisiana Sports Writers Association, which he was a cornerstone of for 5 decades.
Yeah. And if he didn't like the way you did something, he told you.
Oh, bummer. Yeah. They say outspoken, forthright. I just think authentic.
Absolutely.
The best way you can describe Bummer, because he was who he was. He made such a tremendous impact, but he also made such a tremendous impression. And he treated everybody with respect, whether it was that kid who was a marginal player at name the high school, or it was Peyton and Eli Manning.
Absolutely. Yes. He was a good guy, and his loss will be felt for generations, just because he was so prolific, a writer and a true champion of recruiting and the Hall of Fame.
And I want to turn that around a little bit. Instead of his loss, I would say his impact.
Oh, yes.
And it's the same thought, really. But again, think of the people that he influenced, and you're front and center. You're a Hall of Fame journalist in your own right, and your stories are remarkable, but it's not the only one by any stretch. And again, as I say, it was not just journalists. It was coaches, high school coaches. It was college coaches. It was principals. It was kids he covered. And that's a beautiful, beautiful testimony to what Bummer loved doing, which was shining the light on great sports in Louisiana, and especially high school sports in Louisiana, and certainly as a niche, the high school recruiting and football. But he loved mentoring and working with his teammates at the Times Picayune State's Item in the LSWA on the Hall of Fame selection committee. And he loved to laugh. Teddy Allen had a great line when I called him with the news that fateful Sunday night. Teddy says he had no idea how funny he was.
No, he didn't. He was, I likened him to like one of my students who would always make a little comment in the back of the room, and sometimes they missed, but more often than not, they were funny. You were just trying to be serious and couldn't laugh at them.
Yeah. And the other thing about that bounces in front of my brain right now is, he was principled and he had integrity. Mm-hmm. And he was not going to do anything that was going to make somebody look bad.
Oh, no.
No, not at all. And he was going to be sure that things were done the right way, and they were done objectively and fair. And he was going to be sure everybody he was around was having fun.
Absolutely.
Well, he definitely make that hospitality room interesting. That's for
sure.
You think about the hospitality room and all those wonderful conventions and Hall of Fame events and such, and there were many more I know in New Orleans that I was not party to, but I can't help but think about the Corn Festival in Bunkie, which none of us would have known anything about.
Right.
Not for Bill Bumgarner and Garland Foreman, who was from Bunkie, and Bummer determined, hey, this would be a great way to have fun with Garland, and made a running gag out of the Corn Festival in Bunkie. Yeah. And such a beautiful soul, such a faithful person with his friends, with his colleagues, with the people that were in his life. And I'm wearing the Saints shirt on purpose. That was his last day.
Yeah, I know. And I thought it was kind of fitting that, a Saints game did him in, but ultimately it was gardening. So there you go, yard work.
Yeah, we know his health was declining, and he had challenges. But here's the other thing. He kept living life.
Oh, I
He didn't
know.
go sit in the easy chair.
No.
He kept living life and being Bill Bumgarner. My last conversation with him was the morning of our last selection meeting, which was in Pineville on August 23rd, Saturday morning. Bummer was, not able to travel for the longest, but he got cleared that Tuesday by his doctor to travel. And his beloved girlfriend and companion of many years, Rita, who is just a fabulous woman and was the love of Bummer's life, she basically confronted him and said, look, this is not a good decision for you to make that trip. Yeah. Considering what you're going through, you need to take better care of yourself and understand you're more valuable than the Hall of Fame. You have so much to give for people. And he called me at 6 a.m. that Saturday morning, really, really just apologetic that she had talked him into not going to the meeting.
Right.
Probably the first meeting
that's the first one I remember him not being at.
No, I think they went on a cruise one year and he missed. But it meant so much to him. I'm glad you pointed that out. It meant so much to him to have the opportunity to honor the great people through the years in Louisiana sports. And he represented.
Well, I always listened to him.
Yeah. And we all
said,
did.
You need to vote for so-and-so. I was like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, he was one of those folks, every head turned when Bummer spoke.
Yes, indeed.
And most often we laughed our tails off.
Right, exactly. Well, Doug, thank you for joining us and fighting through technology. I think it's Bill haunting us and stirring the pot a little bit. I appreciate you taking the time to join us and share your memories of our friend Bill Bumgarner.
Well, anytime I have a chance to be with the sports couple, I'm going to
put together by Bill Bumgarner.
Yeah, I mean, what a fabulous pairing that is, and Bummer took great joy in seeing you guys being such a happy, wonderful couple, and we all did.
Marty with the party.
Marty with the party.
He did remind me of it quite often.
Did he make you thank him or something?
No, that's not him.
You owe me.
Hey, give me a beer.
Doug, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right, I'll see you at the service.
Yes, sir.
All right, bye.
Joining us now is the great, newly retired Ms. Robin Fambro, late of the Advocate in Baton Rouge. Thanks for joining us, Robin.
I'm happy to join you. The circumstances are obviously not what any of us would want.
Absolutely not. But we all have, so far, everybody's just had really wonderful memories of Bill Bumgarner, our former colleague and coworker.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many. I mean, you could take all state meetings as an example. You could take any championship event. Matter of fact, I remember one time, and this is a very sports writer thing for those who don't understand it, we have deadlines to meet. And when you're at a state championship event that's running behind, then that's an issue. And I'll never forget when the state tournaments for basketball, boys basketball, moved to Lafayette, they added a bunch of ceremonies at halftime where they honored people and they did all of this stuff. And you can just hear him now at the end of the press row saying, Jesus Christ, you're never going to get finished with these games. What's wrong with you? And, Tommy Henry would come at him. And at one point, I think there was a plan to honor Bummer with something. And I think they shelved it. But he used to joke with him all the time. He says, well, we have to honor these people. It's for getting people interested in the tournament. You get your games cut, don't you? I've never seen people waste so much time.
Oh my goodness. He hated all the fluff and all the frou-frou stuff.
Oh, he hated all the pomp and circumstance.
He hated that we had to go to the press room to do interviews after the game and couldn't just grab the people we've been talking to all year on the field. We have to do it, professionally and go to the press room. He hated that.
He hated that too. You're right. Yeah. He hated all those things. And, probably one of my earliest memories of him, because, and this is a story I told Chris Dabe the other day, and it's really kind of funny, and it also kind of speaks to the longevity and career that Bill had. We moved to Baton Rouge in the fall of 1989. And I think it was before the first of the year, we had an appointment for our daughter, who was then about 18, 19 months old, to go see a pediatrician. And it's funny, somebody I still know today, and he has ties to a couple of our Louisiana Sports Hall of Famers, but I don't know this guy, and we're talking, and you tell him you're a sports writer. And I've been doing some freelance work for the Advocate. Previously, I worked, here, and here. He says, well, there's a guy you really ought to meet. We just had him come to a talk to a group of LSU boosters about football recruiting. Now he's a little rough around the edges, but he's great, Bill Bumgarner. And it was, and that's probably about as succinct as you could put it to some
Rough
degree.
around the edges.
But they got what they wanted, and that's what I told him. I said, you don't understand how groundbreaking that kind of stuff was that he did.
Yeah.
Because nobody did it, and he came and spoke to this group. He used to speak to other groups around the state, and it was amazing. And other people have detailed, I'm sure, the stories of you're there with him, and he's on the sidelines, and didn't like the press, never did the press box, and he would always have his story done before you, even though you never really figured out how he managed to do that. And I mean, it was just. It was just he was just such a jewel. There was always like I said, we were always entertained.
Oh yes,
But
most definitely.
also too, the story that I related about my daughter and her baby and my son-in-law from 2021 from the Hall of Fame, that also speaks to just what a kind-hearted person he was. Because a lot of people would say, oh yeah, that guy's just one of those old sports writers. And I agree with what Les said and Pierce, that you could probably pigeonhole him and put him on a show like Lou Grant or something like that. Probably minus some of the color that he used, but that was kind of the era that he grew up in, and a lot of us grew up in. But it was like, well, that guy, he's just out there. Well, he cared about all of us, and we cared about him.
Absolutely.
And I mean that, like I say, when I used to bring my daughter with me, especially around the time I was LSWA president. She would have been 12, 13 years old, but I started bringing her to events before that. And both he and Ron Mercado, they would pick on her and keep an eye on her or whatever.
Right.
One time I think we were at Zephyr Field for a
convention. I remember that.
And
I was a baby.
Like, where is she? Well, remember they had those seats on the outside. She was sitting out there with them, because I don't know what was going on. I don't remember what was going on where we were. We were talking about God knows what. And but I mean that's the humanity too. But for him in that moment, not knowing my son-in-law at all, he's carrying the baby, and he was very nervous about meeting all these people because he came up to me right after. Bill says to him, you have a beautiful wife and a beautiful baby. He comes up to me afterwards. He says, you have the nicest friends. I was really worried about this, but you really have the nicest friends. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I really do. That's true. But I mean, he was the consummate professional. He was a stickler for everything, details and all of that. I like JT Curtis's story about he might call him back 2 or 3 times to make sure he had all the names spelled right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
he would go off if there was a mistake or somebody edited something out of or into a story. And
oh yeah. That's the stack of things on the desk. I thought was great of the greatest hits.
Cut all the mistakes that he'd seen in the newspaper and put them in a folder.
Yeah,
I think we all had one of those.
But I mean, it didn't say. To be honest with you, he used to come to the championship events after he retired, but it's always been different since then because you had somebody who had a unique take on it. You knew they were an expert on everything to start with, but then to not have that humor, and sometimes you need to have that humor injected in certain moments to get you through. And I mean, again, he collaborated so well with all of us, with me, because like I say, I was a little concerned when I became the head of the All-State Committee, or almost permanent head of the All-State Committee in 1998. And it's like, how's this going to go? Because half the people in this room have only been doing this a year or two, and they don't know anybody else around the state. And I mean, he would, a lot of times they would get into some debates, and they usually end with him uh, offering a quip of some kind. But I mean, usually the standard reply was, he tells us we nominate too many people, and we tell him he nominates too few. You need to nominate more people. So, but there was so much that we learned from him through the years. Like people
Right.
said, his encyclopedic knowledge of everything, um,
Memory.
and just everything he did and everything he stood for. I mean,
Right.
I can't think of too many better human beings that I have had the pleasure to know.
You're right. Absolutely. I agree with that.
Even as grumpy as he was.
Yeah.
But if
Oh,
he
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
grumpy, you wouldn't love him as much. It was what made him him.
Oh, yeah. No, there were things like that. And I can understand why people wouldn't get that, but we did, because
Yeah.
he was ours, and
Right.
we understood all of that. And yeah, and
Like the
I
burnt
made the comment
marshmallow.
also about how technology was not his friend at the end, and that was true. That was very
I
true.
know. I
Um,
know.
and actually, it was also another thing in Lafayette where
Bummer would not be able to be a guest on our podcast.
and he was he
No,
was
don't.
trying to use a PC, and didn't have any idea how I could send. Really didn't know how to do any of it. And
No.
we were trying to do our best to help him. And what we finally did, because I think he had a late game one of those nights, one of the young LHSA assistants, she came and helped him and made sure. I think she emailed his story to make sure it got in. But it was
You
that
guys did it a
important.
few times.
Of course,
Yeah.
now you fast forward for me about 20 something years, and there are a lot of things that I feel like I don't know, so I get that.
Oh,
No, I mean,
well. There you
all
go.
of my memories of him are just what a kind person he was. I mean, nobody. I don't think there's anybody who's you could say was quite the life of the party the way he was, because like somebody noted too, he'd tell you the same story 2 or 3 times, and it was the way he told it, and it might be a little different each time. It would be great.
Yes.
And I know the athletes and coaches that he covered loved him, and I mean, it's it's a huge loss for all of us. I hope other people understand what a huge loss it is for our profession,
Yes.
because a lot of people from that era and are days gone by. They don't understand. Things are so different. It's what can you capture in a tweet? What can you get, or an X
Right.
post, or what can you get in Instagram? And I get all of that. I get all of that. I understand where that comes from, but there also has to be some depth and some other things to it. And
Right. Exactly.
that's probably me being one of those old sports writers now. But yeah, I mean, he's truly simply one in a million, and would do anything for you if you wanted him to. The thing too, as we talk about what he meant to us, he meant a lot to the coaches too.
Oh,
And
yes.
obviously we're hearing from older coaches, but I had 2 or 3 coaches from my area who said, he treated us, even though he did not cover us traditionally, he treated us like we were one of their teams. And this is a coach who coached at multiple schools in our area and took teams to state basketball tournament.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Robin, thank you so much for sharing your memories with us on Bill Bumgarner. We appreciate you joining us.
Alrighty, no problem.
Bummer. We'll always know you by that name, but what we know most about you is how gracious you were, how giving you were, how talented you were, and how you helped others when you had the opportunity to do so. Beneath that curmudgeon look of yours, prowling the sidelines, was a really nice person and a tremendous professional, and somebody I looked up to, and somebody I appreciated, and somebody I always thought was at the top of his profession. I can't imagine anyone did a better job covering high school sports on the print level than you did for as many years as you did. And don't think people didn't notice. They all did, especially me. I will always appreciate Bill for what he was, but more importantly for who he was. May God speed to you, my friend, and see you in eternity. And thank you for so much that you did for all of us. And God bless you.